Hey guys, Tim Miller from the Bulwark here with managing editor Sam Stein. Bernie and AOC have been on just a BARNSTORM tour all over the Mountain West here. I'm in Arizona right now, and they had an event in Arizona that I want to talk about. They're also in my hometown, Denver. Massive event there in front of the Capitol. I think 30,000 people, they said, outside in downtown Denver. They also did an event up in Greeley. Doesn't smell that great in Greeley. It's a red district, but it's kind of like a swingy red district. And so,
what does it smell
like cow manure. Like they do a lot of just a little too much industrial waste and farming. Yeah, up there in Greeley. It's definitely the worst smelling city in Colorado. We love you though, Greeley. If you're watching out there, no offense. It just is what it is. Sometimes you got to earn your flaw, own your weaknesses, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, AOC and Bernie, I wanted to just kind of bat around with you what you think this means that they're drawing such big crowds, and then play a couple clips from the rallies. So what's your top line take?
Well, I mean, I think my top line take is objectively, they are tapping into something massive, right? Like 34,000 people in Denver is crazy. It's crazy. And that's bigger than any crowd Bernie's had on any of his presidential campaigns. And I think I was talking to a Bernie person, and what's interesting is that it's not just Bernie people signing up. Like they are checking their email list and running that against the people who are signing up for these crowds. And it wasn't like a direct correlation. These are new people who are registering. So people are, there's a huge appetite for any sort of resistance. Now, the other thing that I think is kind of interesting here is that as this is happening, we can get to this after the clips, there's sort of this simultaneous weird coalition that's forming with AOC and a bunch of kind of like what you and I would affectionately call centrist white dudes. It's like Connor Lamb and Tim Ryan are like coming up and being like, we love AOC.
And like, Bill Kristol.
Yeah. And it's like something, and there's like this, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because who knows where this ends up, but there's like a weird coalition forming on the left that at its core is just sort of like, fuck this shit. It's like the fuck this shit coalition. Like we just have to we've had enough. And it's bringing together this cross ideological grouping. Now that could be powerful, right? Like you need that in a resistance here because you can't have infighting. I don't know if it's sustainable because of what we saw with Schumer 2 weeks ago, but clearly the energy's there. It's now incumbent upon people like Bernie, AOC, and people beyond that, frankly, to figure out ways to tap into it. So that's my take.
Yeah, let's actually do hash that out before we get to the clips, because I think that's the interesting part of this. Dave Weigel over at Sem4, has been on the ground at a lot of these events, and one of the interesting things that he was reporting was just from kind of talking to people there, a lot of Bernie primary voters. Right, like the crowd was, wasn't just Bernie's not just bringing out people that were for him in the 2016 and 2020 primaries, right? Like there are some new people coming out that are also young and progressive, but there are also some people coming out that are just Democrats, like that are not that would have been for other people in those primaries, but are just looking for anybody. Yeah.
I bet there are a lot of apolitical people. I mean, I haven't been there, but I'd be very curious how many people just never were involved and just like, I need to tap into something. But go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So I think that tells you that speaks to your point about this fuck this shit coalition. Like I do think that there are people going out there that maybe are not fully on board with feeling the burn on every little element of his agenda, but they want somebody that is challenging this, that is speaking with passion, that is fighting. And I think that you add those people onto kind of the existing very real base of support that Bernie AOC have, and you start to get kind of these big crowds. So I think that is pretty notable. And like on the internet, a lot of times people want to like create like this. There's this tension that like we're like a lot of Democrats, especially people that were involved in 2016, like still can't get over the Bernie versus Hillary fight, and they're like power users and commentators, want to be like, oh, it has to be AOC or it has to be, whatever. And like a lot of regular people are just like, I don't know, like if AOC and Bernie are the ones that are going to come to my town and rally and put up the fist, then I'll go out for AOC and Bernie. And that, and so I think that they are channeling this sort of anti-regime kind of anger that is out there in a lot. And I think other people could probably do it, maybe not with the same level of success because of Bernie's existing audience, but I think that other people, if they had that the same passion that these guys do, could also probably pull together big crowds right now.
Well, I think we need to remember that, like, in 2017, like, the first thing that happened when Trump won was a massive rally, the pussy hats and all that stuff. And that just hasn't happened yet. But it doesn't mean that there isn't an appetite for people for that type of demonstration of disobedience. And I actually drove by this morning. I drove by my first Tesla rally. I just happened to drive by a Tesla factory.
Were those domestic terrorists out there protesting?
Yeah. No Molotov cocktails at this one, but a bunch of people who parked, hundreds of yards down the street and were walking with their signs and like had made it a point that Saturday to show up because they needed an outlet to show how pissed off they were. Like, and that's it. Like there are two outlets right now. There are Tesla protests and there's like the random Bernie AOC mega rally. And there's just not enough outlets for people to demonstrate how pissed off and afraid, frankly, they are. And so I think when you see 34,000 people showing up in Denver, part of that is because Bernie and AOC have this inherent appeal and they have these lists and they can bring people out. But frankly, a lot of it is just sort of like pent up frustration that people need to figure out a way to get out of their systems. And I think what an indictment of the Democrats to this point is they haven't been able to organize anything quite like that on an institution level. Maybe it will happen, but it just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, no, they're filling a big time void. Okay, I want to play two clips. One is kind of related to this failure of the Democratic establishment thus far. I mean, again, it feels like it's been forever, but it's been 2 months and 2 days since the inauguration somehow. So, I mean, Democrats have a little bit of time, but AOC spoke to this exact, weakness.
Just to be clear, that means we're 124th. 124th in, is that it? Yeah,
I can't do the math live. Then the lethargy of the Democrats, particularly Chuck Schumer. Here is AOC right here in Arizona about a day ago.
This isn't just about Republicans either. We need a Democratic Party that fights harder for us too. But that means, here's what that means. That means our communities, each and every one of us, choosing and voting for Democrats and elected officials who know how to stand for the working class. And Tempe, I want to give you your flowers for a second, because you all have been working overtime to make that happen. In fact, one thing I love about Arizonans is that you all have shown that if a U.S. Senator isn't fighting hard enough for you, you're not afraid to replace her with one who will and win. And that's how you got two fantastic senators in Mark Kelly and Ruben Gallego.
So a cheeky point there, where she's talking about Kristen Sinema, obviously, and how the Democrats got rid of her, replaced her with Ruben Gallego, who we interviewed a couple of weeks ago, who's been much spunkier, more committed anti-MAGA Democrats than Kristen Sinema, to say the least. And so, and she specifically says, like, it's not just Republicans. Like, I'm here, we're out here because we're upset at what Republicans are doing, the way they're going around the law, the way they're hurting people, the way they're trampling on free speech. But also it's like the Democrats got to step up to the plate here. And so, like, there's a little bit of subtext about maybe how AOC might be challenging Chuck Schumer, and making this kind of parallel to Arizona. But, a little, she knew what she was doing, I guess is my point.
Of course she did. And then, of course, like she went after John Fetterman online.
Yeah.
Like a little bit after that, Fetterman or maybe Fetterman had gone after her. Sorry, and then she responded to Fetterman. And I mean, we've all gone through this. It's the Tea Party thing, and I don't know, whatever. But it is true that she knows, and it's very apparent that there's like real frustration among the base of Democratic voters over how Schumer and Fetterman have conducted themselves. And it's just, again, it comes back to this idea that like it's not really ideological, right? Like I don't actually think like there's that much of a gap between AOC and Schumer. There is obviously, but I think it could be overstated. It's really comes down to attitudinal, and they want to see at least some sort of fight. And I know that's an incredibly vague term, and I'm kind of curious what it would look like in her definition. But everyone wants to see people stand up to Trump. And I think part of that's not just because they've watched Schumer say, no, we need to fund the government. It's because they've seen Columbia University be like, yeah, we'll bend over and have you look and administer our Middle Eastern studies programs because we don't want to lose money. They've seen Paul Weiss and other big firms being like, no, we will do all these contortions to make sure that we're not extorted. And if every single institution, including the big ones that have power, are bending, at some point people just are looking for someone to say, no, screw it. Like, I don't care if I lose money or if I, have to deal with the consequences. I'm just going to stand up to this shit. And that's what she's tapping into there.
I agree with your point that this is mostly not ideological, that there is this anger out there that somebody needs to channel. It's better suited to have somebody that's a little bit of an outsider like AOC and Bernie do it. With the caveat, there's a little bit of ideology here, and there is some Overton window moving and within the party potentially. And so I do want to play one more clip and this is kind of representative of her stump speech, which she's been saying at a lot of these events, and just kind of take a listen to the crowd.
Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security were promises that we as a people have made to each other about the kind of country we are and the kind of society we want to live in. And I don't know about you, Arizona, but I want to live in an America that guarantees health care to every person. I want to live in an America that has a living wage for every person. I want to live in America where you have free speech to express yourself and not be afraid of getting put on a list or deported. But these promises that we've made, they are not promises from politicians to the people, or they're not charity from billionaires to everyday Americans. They are promises we have made to each other. Neighbor to neighbor, friend to friend, teacher to student, family member to family member. That we want to live in a society that is not depraved, not every person for themselves, but all of us standing together. This is the promise that we make to each other as Americans.
All right, so look at that. I mean, that's a very different type of speech than Gretchen Whitmer or Josh Shapiro would give, probably, right? Just in like what her focus is. The crowd is responding to it. And I think that there is something here. Now, I'm not going to really like be on board with all of the, probably details of the living wage policy. As a political matter, the fact that they are, to use a lib term, you can tell I've gone lib now, I'm about to use centering. The fact that they're centering, these like economic justice issues and then pairing it with the free speech. Would her policies and Kamala's have been that much different? Yeah, they would have been different, but on the margins. But the emphasis is very different. And if the Democrats are struggling with working class people, I do think that it should not be ignored that there is that strain of this that is not just anti-Trump resistance. That ideological side, the economic justice side of this is very central to what they're doing.
I see what you're saying, and I think again it's a point of emphasis more than ideology, to me at least, my analysis of it. And by that I mean, like, if you think back 3, 4, 5 years ago, there's these debates in the Democratic Party about, well, do we do economic populism a la Bernie, or do we emphasize, social issues and women's issues predominantly, right? And, they rolled into the midterms, and then frankly to this election less so, but still emphasizing abortion rights, emphasizing democracy, less so around the sort of planks that Bernie puts forward, which is, raising the minimum wage, going after the billionaires and the trillionaires. And I think because of Trump's victory and because of what he's done in terms of bringing in these rich oligarch tech billionaires, and you have Howard Lutnick talking about, what's the problem with missing a week of Social Security? Because you've been presented with this hand, it makes a ton of sense to me that you would lean into these economic issues, right? Like this is the playing field. And to tease Lauren Egan's newsletter that's coming out tomorrow night, it's been interesting to me to watch how quickly gender, which was such a central point of the party's platform, has fallen off as an issue. Now, again, I will grant you, I think AOC is more liberal than Kamala Harris, for sure, right? Kamala Harris wasn't talking about, Medicare for all, or if she was, it was in the abstract. But ultimately, I think it's sort of on emphasis. It's like we need economic populism from a sort of liberal democratic perspective than from what Trump is vaguely offering through these podcasts and these policies.
All right. Much more on that to come. Go to thebulwark.com and subscribe to all of our newsletters. Lauren Egan's newsletter on the Democratic Party we just launched is really good and insightful. So go check that out. Subscribe to this feed on YouTube. Tell your friends. Sam Stein, thanks for popping on with me on a Saturday. We'll see y'all soon. Hey, YouTube fam. If you want to support The Bulwark, the best way to do it is by becoming a YouTube Bulwark Plus member. The Bulwark is truly independent. We have no corporate overlords. We're not settling any dumb lawsuits with Trump. By joining, you help support our work, and you can get a bunch of perks right here on this platform. Ad-free content, bonus videos, live streams, and some emojis of me, which I guess some people want. So come join, come hang out, become a Bulwark YouTube Plus member, and I'll be seeing you in the comments. So behave.